This is episode 3 of a little series that is aimed to give you the tools to keep your peace in the middle of drama and come out of it feeling proud of how you've conducted yourself. This has all come up to me following an unfortunate experience with one of my in-laws over the holidays, something that taught me so much and that I want to share with you, so hopefully you too will be able to keep your peace when confronted to drama. Let me quickly catch you up in case you haven't listened to part 1, why other people's judgment isn't actually about you, and part 2, are they just being dicks? Which you can catch up on my YouTube channel, Charlotte Melki Official, or my podcast on Spotify, Clarity Boosters. So this summer, I went away with my partner's family, and a family member shouted at me in front of everyone. Long story short, I got dragged into drama that had nothing to do with me. And in this series, I'm sharing my insights as to what happened and how I dealt with it. In part 1, I talked about judgment, why some comments stick and others bounce right off us. They only stick when they match an old insecurity you are already carrying, what I call a Velcro patch. And I talked about paddle down, when someone tries to pull you into their drama. They're trying to start a game of ping pong with you. They need you to pick up the paddle to react. Otherwise, there's no game. Paddle down means choosing not to react. Not out of fear, because you are intentionally protecting your peace. In part 2, I also talked about what happens when the person will not meet you there. What it means when they're consistently throwing the olive branch you hand them back to your face. I spoke about the drama triangle, the relationship between the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer, and how to stay out of it. I also explained what these somewhat excessive reactions actually mean. And today is the most important insight of all, because we're going to talk about boundaries and why it's so often misinterpreted as confrontation. I will also give you some tools to be able to express your boundaries in a way that's helpful rather than harmful. So, the other day, I was telling a client about that exact holiday. I was using it to explain how other people's judgment is never really about us. And this stopped me with a great question. But if you don't say anything when someone behaves in a way that hurts you, how are you supposed to stand up for yourself? Doesn't that make you a pushover? What a wonderful question. And also exactly the misunderstanding I want to clear up today. Because what happened there is that they have confused two things: not reacting and not standing up for yourself. Those are not the same thing at all. One is about protection, the other is about boundaries. And here's what can sound counterintuitive: protections and boundaries do not go hand in hand. So let's start with what a boundary actually is, because that's where most of us go wrong. A boundary is a statement that involves no blame. It only expresses what you feel, and it offers a solution to protect that feeling from happening again, one that does not involve blaming anyone else. Something like, I feel really disrespected when you snap at me like that. So from now on, when this happens, I need to remove myself from the situation so I don't react to that feeling and so it doesn't escalate. You'll notice there's no punishment, no threat. It doesn't tell the other person how they feel or what they think or what is wrong with them. It's entirely about what you are going to do. So back to the holiday. If I had reacted in that moment, feeling attacked, feeling shocked, thinking, I can't let them speak to me that way, that would have been protection. And that's why boundaries set mid-argument, or while we're still triggered, come out sounding like blame. You make me feel. Because of your behavior, or like a threat. If you ever do that again, I will. And as long as there's blame or threat in there, change is rarely on the cards. Think about it for a second. Have you ever seriously considered the words of someone who was blaming you or threatening you? No, you defend yourself. That's what we all do in this situation. So, choice of words is important when setting a boundary. But I hear you. What if you choose your words carefully, with no blame, no threat, and they still don't hear you? That's because there's something even more important than the choice of words: timing. Whether your boundary is heard as a boundary or heard as an attack does not only depend on the words, it depends on the state of mind that you and the other person are in. Later that same day, I went to apologize for my part in the situation, and I got shut down. This time, it was them who weren't ready to hear me. Any boundary I set in that moment would have been received as another attack. Even an apology landed as an attack. There's a very simple way I think about this with my client. I call it your feedback loop. When you feel secure within yourself, your feedback loop is open. You can hear feedback and actually take it on board. When you're triggered or emotional, you're in protection mode and the loop closes. In those moments, your unconscious reads the situation as danger. And when there's danger, there's no time for new information. So the unconscious mind goes by what it already knows to be true and closes the loop, which is why it's genuinely impossible to change someone's mind while they're angry or sad or in the grip of any strong emotion. Their loop is shut. Nothing gets through. No matter how right you are, no matter how gently you say it. In order for boundaries to land, both loops have to be open. If only one is closed, the boundary won't land as a boundary. That's what happened with my apology. My loop was open, theirs wasn't. Understanding that means being able to take other people's inability to listen to our boundaries less personally. It allows us to keep our peace in heated moments instead of adding more fuel to the fire. I'm just telling you how I feel. Why can't you just listen? A client of mine experienced that firsthand recently. He was telling me about an argument with his wife. He said, she snapped at me. So I gave her an hour to calm down. And when I went back to talk to her, she was even angrier than before. He was baffled by this because he had done everything right. He stayed calm, he gave her space, he waited. So I asked him, was that hour actually enough time for her? Or was it enough time for you? He'd never thought about it that way. The timing was right, but for him. And that's the misunderstanding. We assume other people's loops reopen on our schedule. If mine has reopened, surely theirs has too. But they have different triggers, different stories, different conditionings, different insecurities. Put it plainly, we are not the same person. We can't expect someone else's loop to reopen on our time frame just because it's ours. So, why do we even do this? Why do we assume other people are like us? Our brain is wired to make sense of things. It wants to understand what is going on. And to do that, it has two options. Option one, open the loop, get curious, ask questions. That's the preferred option because that's what allows us to learn and to make progress. Think about children. They learn fast because their feedback loop is constantly open. Option two, keep it closed and go by what the mind already knows, an assumption. And when it takes option two, it needs a reference point. So it uses the only one it has, you, how you would react. It goes, if I were them, I would. Assumption is incredibly useful in a lot of moments. When there's danger and no time for questions, when you need to act fast. In a moment like this, however, it does more harm than good. It completely omits the other person's boundaries and ends up creating more tension. Which brings me to the golden rule we were told as children, which, in my opinion, is the worst piece of advice you could give someone. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Here is my problem with this sentence. We should not treat people how we would want to be treated. We should treat people how they want to be treated. When you use your own preferences as the compass for someone else's timing or boundaries, you erase those. And that's exactly what turns I gave her an hour into judgment. She's still angry. What's wrong with her? which adds more fuel to that fire. Most people try to set boundaries at the worst possible moment. And they do it for a very good reason. When we feel attacked, the instinct is to defend ourselves right now. So the question worth asking is this: is my goal here to defend myself? Or is it for something to actually change? Timing is what makes the difference between the two. Say the exact same sentence mid argument, and then again, once both loops have reopened, you are not saying the same thing twice. And to be very clear, this does not mean waiting forever. The goal is waiting until you're both actually capable of hearing each other, not letting the moment pass so long that nothing ever gets said at all. So, yes, from an outsider perspective, not reacting can look like not standing up for yourself. It's not the action in a moment that defines that, it's the intention behind the action. Am I not reacting because I'm scared or because I'm holding my peace and choose my timing to set my boundary on my terms and when I know it will have the best chance to land? So, here is something to help you with setting a boundary that actually lands. 1. Check yourself. Is your feedback loop open? Are you actually ready to express your boundary in a way that's blame-free? 2. Are they ready to hear it? No matter how well formulated your boundary is, if the feedback loop is closed, it will land as an attack and create more drama, not less. 3. When the moment is right, lead with what you will do and leave the door open. Take responsibility for what you can control and leave the rest to them. Don't tell them how they feel or what they should do. Just what you're going to do differently. Something like, I know you didn't mean these words. I'm over it. But for us to move forward, we need to find a way for this not to happen again, because it isn't something I can tolerate. What can I do going forward to avoid this? So, let me recap everything we spoke about in the last 3 episodes and the learnings I took from this unfortunate experience. Number 1, no nasty comment. No sudden outburst is ever really about you. It's a mirror of their own insecurity, their own inability to express their boundaries in real time, exploding in one moment, what I call a kindness debt. Number 2, someone else's victim mindset is not an invitation to become their persecutor or their rescuer. As soon as you play the game, as you react, you're becoming a victim too. Keeping your peace means not reacting, not playing ping pong, keeping the paddle down. And finally, 3, not reacting is not the same as having no boundaries. A boundary lands with the right words at the right time once both of you are actually ready to hear it, not just on your schedule, and not out of fear of what happens if you stay quiet. And there's one more thing I realized only a few days ago. See, as I'm recording this now, a month later, that person still hasn't been able to come around. If anything, they made it bigger in their head, gotten more upset, basically continued an argument in their own mind. On the other hand, I realized I have felt incredibly calm about all this, even knowing the things that person had been saying about me since then. I have not given that a second thought. Not only that, but I've been able to use what happened to learn more about myself, about others, and to use all of that creatively for you. See, in order to do that, you need space in your mind. That space is usually occupied by replaying conversations over and over again, or by getting angry at the things they've said about you. That's what protecting your peace actually means. It's keeping other people's stories out of your head. When we do that, it leaves room for something else instead. like learning, growth, creativity, or whatever you would rather be doing with your mind. So, I want to finish this series with two questions for you that I truly hope will help you move forward if you currently feel stuck in drama. How much of this year have you spent replaying, resenting, or defending yourself in someone else's story? And what could you do? What could you build with that time if you chose to let go today?